Now, I don't usually cover specific political topics on this channel because, well, Lord knows there are plenty of channels out there that are already tackling those issues. But today, I think we need to talk about something because, for right or wrong, whether you like it or not, the workplace has become intensely politicized over the past several years, and now we got to deal with the consequences of it. Now, I'm recording this episode not quite 36 hours after the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. Now, all indications are that he's okay and that he's up and about, but if that bullet were a fraction of an inch to one side or another, or if he didn't turn his head just when he did, this could have been a whole different story. And, as it is, at least one member of the audience, a gentleman by the name of Corey Compratore, lost his life. He was a dedicated husband. He was a great father. He served his community as a firefighter. And I just can't imagine what that family is going through right now. And my prayers are certainly with them and with him. Man, as a dad, I can't imagine how his daughters are feeling. So please join me in prayers for that family. But, getting back to the story, I don't want to rehash all of the details here because I think at this stage of the game, there were probably still just as many questions as answers. But everything I discussed today is going to be told through the lens of this weekend's events. Now, for the first time in the history of our country, actually for the first time in the history of the world, we saw an assassination attempt occur in the era of social media. Now, of course, there was footage of when President Reagan was shot in 81 and when President Kennedy was gunned down in 63, but this is the first time when we saw it happen in real time and from so many different sources. And the big difference here is the media, the gatekeepers, couldn't fully control the way the story was presented. They no longer had the exclusive domain of what details to publish or of what spin to put on it or of what lens the so-called facts should be viewed through because we saw it all unfold in front of our eyes. But it sure didn't stop them from trying, did it? Right after the event happened, the media got to work spreading the news, which is not surprising, of course. That's what their job is. But look at how they were teeing it up. Trump was escorted away after loud noises at a Pennsylvania rally. Secret Service rushes Trump off stage after popping noises heard at his Pennsylvania rally. Trump removed from stage by Secret Service after loud noises startles the former president and the crowd. I mean, we could see with our own eyes that the president was shot. We could literally see the blood streaming down the side of his face, yet the media teed it up as popping noises. And look at this. I mean, we literally watched Trump take a bullet to the head, yet the media consistently used language like a possible assassination attempt. Now, I got my journalism degree in 94, and back then we were trained to use words like alleged and apparent and possible until things were proven beyond the shadow of a doubt what really was going on. But that doesn't seem to be really evenly applied anymore, does it? And when you see something like what happened with your own eyes side by side with some of these headlines we just reviewed, well, it looks like publications are doing anything to avoid the obvious. Now, some will argue that those were all written in the heat of the moment. They were put together as the chaos unfolded in real time. But surely things would be different on Sunday morning when the reporting hits because cooler heads will prevail, right? Well, if you're a New York Times subscriber, this is what awaited you in the morning paper. It was an op-ed headline reading, "He failed the tests of leadership and he betrayed America. Voters must reject him in November. Donald Trump is unfit to lead." Now, I've worked at a major metropolitan daily before, and unlike the internet, of course, you're dealing with a printed product, and that needs to be produced, and that needs to be distributed. So I'm sure the wheels were already in motion long before Saturday, so this could hit your breakfast tables on Sunday morning. But that said, when an assassination attempt is made on the man that you're slamming in your op-ed, you move heaven and earth to try and get that section pulled from the paper. Maybe they couldn't, maybe the trucks were already out, but anything short of making that attempt is either laziness or a dereliction of duty, or maybe they just wanted it to happen. Who knows? But, all right. So that was Sunday morning. Fast forward a few hours, and we received word that President Biden was going to go on TV and send a message to the American people. And during that address, President Biden talked about the need for unity and the need for us to turn down the rhetoric and the need for us to come together. And those are all great things. If you missed it, you can watch the full video somewhere on YouTube. But here's what the official White House X account had to say about what was discussed during that speech. Tonight, President Biden addressed the nation on the need for Americans to lower the temperature in our politics. Disagreement is inevitable in American democracy, but politics must never be a literal battlefield. A second post said, tonight, President Biden called on every American to recommit to what makes America so special. Here in America, everyone must be treated with dignity and respect, and hate must have no safe harbor. Now, those were nice flowery words. Those were great sentiments. But this kinder, gentler Joe is distinctly at odds with the person he has been for the past several years. I mean, who could forget the speech that he gave in front of those blood-red floodlights where he said, and I quote, "There's no question that the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans, and that is a threat to this country." In other speeches, he called Trump and his supporters a clear and present danger. And that's a phrase that, in my opinion, was used with clear intent, because if something is deemed a clear and present danger, that gives the government the ability to put limitations on First Amendment freedoms of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of assembly. Now, here are some more comments, some as recent as just a few weeks ago, that we're now suddenly supposed to forget. Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are a threat to the very soul of this country. Donald Trump is the greatest threat to our democracy. Donald Trump is a genuine threat to his nation. He's a threat to our freedom. He's a threat to our democracy. He's literally a threat to everything that America stands for. So again, Trump and all of his supporters were nothing but threats to the country, according to the president just a couple of weeks ago. Now, do I agree that we need to take down the temperature in the room? Absolutely and wholeheartedly. I also agree that we should all let our better angels prevail and walk back from the rhetoric and bring things back to a point of civility. But the elephant in the room is that this should have happened months or years ago. It shouldn't take a bullet and a close call to get everyone to take a breath and relax. And the people who have been absorbing the insults and the sneers and the gaslighting for damn near a decade, many of them in silence because they were too afraid to voice their concerns or voice their opinion, are now being asked to step up and absorb a little bit more. And, human nature is human nature. I'm really afraid that all of the anger and all of the ire that so many people who supported Trump and who are on the right are feeling right now, I think that's a genie that's not going to go back into the bottle, at least not right away and at least not easily. So, all right, right about now, you're probably saying, okay, Mark, that's interesting. What does that have to do with the workforce? Well, if we're smart as business leaders, as managers, as HR teams, and even those of us as workers, we're going to see what's happened and we're going to make some changes in the workplace really fast. Because for the past several years, entire swaths of the workforce have been marginalized and pushed to the side and told they don't matter and bullied into silence. And that was all done in the name of progress. See, there used to be a time when the old adage of don't talk about politics or religion in the workplace was a thing, but that all changed in recent years. Political stances of every type have not only been injected into the workplace, but actively celebrated and encouraged. Surveys and studies and reports and headlines have breathlessly stated that employers need to be socially active, that they need to take stances, and they need to evangelize those stances as loudly and as frequently as possible. But no matter how noble the intent, there's going to be baggage that comes along for the ride. In such environments, a percentage of your workforce is going to feel excluded, and the size of that percentage is going to vary by topic. If you're an employer and you vocally support abortion rights, for example, you force pro-life workers to either knowingly prop up an organization that actively and vocally supports something that they oppose at a deeply moral level, or they have to leave the business. But what happens most of the time is they just kind of clam up. They become disengaged from the work. They become disengaged from their workplace. They grow distant from their coworkers. And although some may speak up, and trust me, if you're in the type of workplace where opposing views are welcome and tolerated, you're part of something that's pretty special and rare. Because all too often, those who speak up are typically punished, either directly or indirectly, for doing so. And that sends a very clear message to the rest of the workforce. Fall in line or shut up. Those are your two options. It's a really slippery slope that we built for ourselves lately, folks. And, Another relatively new workplace dynamic is the constant slicing and dicing of employees into increasingly narrow demographic buckets. Gender identity, sexuality, skin color, ethnicity. All of these divisions are being made, each one taking the workplace further and further away from becoming a unified group of people that are working towards a common goal, and more like a collection of tribes, each one of them vying for their own slice of what's honestly an increasingly shrinking pie. The truth of the matter is that people are much more than the labels they're ascribed, no matter how charitable or how well-intended those labels may be. Each individual is just that, an individual. So when a person gets chucked into a category and reduced to a label, it is an inherently dehumanizing experience. Now, I believe that's why so many workplaces are starting to feel pushback on their DE&I programs, at least in its current incarnation. And that's why it's so important to rethink and reimagine how we go about taking care of our employees. In our last video, I spoke about this topic at length, and I'm hopeful that the tide is going to start turning soon. Because after what just happened this weekend in Pennsylvania, we have to bump this up the priority list. Stat. Now, during my career, I've been blessed enough to hold some leadership roles, several as a C-level executive, and I've seen how awesome the workplace can be when you bring people together and you rally them around common goals. And my teams have been made up of workers from all walks of life. Many of them probably had opposing viewpoints on lots of different topics. But we came together around the work and around the common goals and around shared objectives. And through that, we formed not only a great working relationship, but also some really, really lasting friendships too. Now, a lot of those people have since advanced in their careers, and they're leaders, and they're building teams of their own. And it's so awesome to see what they're doing. Now, of course, we had discussions about non-work topics. And of course, we discussed current events. And of course, we had disagreements. What was critical, though, is that we first had that strong foundation of trust. We knew we had a role to play. We felt included in the way we were going to achieve those goals. And ultimately, we knew that we had each other's back. And that's when things really sing in the workplace. Focusing on differences and differences only is a race to the bottom. And positioning those differences as reasons to marginalize or look down upon or dehumanize others sets you on a path that's awfully hard to reverse. We all just got a real ugly lesson on what happens when us versus them mindsets are taken to the extreme. I just really hope we learn from it. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless. Be safe out there. We'll catch you on the next one.